my family came here in probably 1961 or 2. I was about 4, so it would have been around about then. And I think they came here on a day trip from Guernsey. They went to Guernsey just for a holiday, my mum and dad, just on their own, left us at home, we were being babysat. And they came here, I think they must have come here on a day trip. There must have been maybe a little ferry link back then between Guernsey and Alderney, day trips. Instead of going to Herm or Sark, you could come to Alderney. I think they just must have seen a notice board down at the harbours, or someone saying day trips to Alderney, come and see the Cinderella of the Channel Islands or something. Because back then that was what she was called. My father had ashtrays in the hotel, Alderney, the Cinderella of the Channel Islands, because we were the most beautiful one, but the smallest and most probably impoverished one. That was the branding that we had at the time.
Classics.
But because the imputation is that Guernsey and Jersey are the ugly sisters, but of course they're not. They're both beautiful as well. But Alderney is probably the most beautiful.
Yeah, but slightly in the shadows of the
slightly in the shadows of the larger ones. Yeah. Place is nothing like it is now. It's much more simple. And they found this old hotel, which had been a dental surgery as well as a hotel, and it was for sale. And literally the day they arrived, they saw this hotel and they said, let's just move lock, stock and barrel here. And they went back to England. They packed us in a big Bedford bus, all of us, drove us to Gatwick in this bus, because there was a direct air route from Gatwick then to Alderney.
Wow.
Yes, for years, and engines and aeroplanes with 4 engines and an aisle down the middle. This is 50, 60 years ago, and things were better then than they are now, I think, in terms of air links. And it was a direct flight from Gatwick to here. I think it was probably about an hour in the air. And we flew in Herons and Doves, which were a proper airline, proper airplane. So we all jumped on these airplanes, and they continued for a few years after that. I think Alderney started up in 1968. So we had 6, 7 years of really good air links, because we had to go back and forth in the winters when my father returned to do work. He still had business matters in the UK, and so we were here for the springs and through the summers. Come the beginning of the winters, we'd head off back to Great Yarmouth in Norfolk, and continue our schooling there into we'd have winters and Christmases there, and then come back here again in the spring after 2 or 3 months in the UK. So we were sort of commuters really, but we would definitely considered ourselves to be at home in Alderney rather than away over there. I mean, I'm so grateful that they did, because I just had the best childhood I think I could possibly imagine ever having. Proper adventure, with bicycles and exploring bunkers and Victorian forts and beaches that Cornwall would envy, because they're so beautiful, our beaches. I've always thought that if Normandy and Cornwall decided they were going to have a baby, it would be Alderney, because we got all the Frenchness of Normandy, but we got all the beauty of Cornwall as well. These gorgeous beaches and coves and old Victorian forts and castles, and so much to do on such a tiny little place. Everything is condensed and makes it more intense. Yeah, my sister lives here. My brother's away, and my brother died, obviously. But yeah, we all grew up here, the 4 of us, in the Victoria Hotel. We lived in the basement, which was our domain. And so we were very lucky, in fact. We had a great childhood, because running a hotel, everything had to be, we had to be kept away from the guests, because we were horrible snivelling children.
Not seen and not heard.
Yeah, seen and not heard, basically. And often we were heard, and someone would scream down the stairs, turn that music down or what have you. But we were very lucky, because back then it was unheard of for children to have their own television in their own bedroom. And it was something that you'd only dream of, and so we used to have friends come over and stay over and watch television into the small hours with us, and we were a bit of a hub really for all the local kids. It was just idyllic, absolutely idyllic. Any season, but especially the summers. The summers were beautiful, spending all day on the beaches, jumping off the wall. I mean, I used to live in Alderney and look forward to going to the UK to see, because we had lots of friends over there, and we had school over there as well, and we were going through the various classes of school over there. It was just a little junior comp. And we had that for several years, probably 7 or 8 years. I think we did it regularly every year. And I used to look forward to going over there because the UK then was a lot more innocent. You didn't have people not sending their children. I used to walk to school when it was about a mile and a half to school, and not take a bus or anything. And there was never any in our minds any fear of being taken by a stranger or anything. No stranger danger at all. Nowadays, every child is aware of that because it's beaten into them. But then it didn't even occur to people that it would happen. So in a sense, Alderney was more innocent than the UK, but the UK was much more innocent then than it was now. And we're talking a long time. I'm quite old, Richard.
Don't worry.
I actually go back to the UK in the 80s, and I lived in London for 3 years. But I always used to come back every summer for a couple of weeks or so. But I was a Londoner for 3 years, and I enjoyed it. I love London, I still do, but I came back after 3 years because my mother passed away, and we had to she was dying, and I had to bring her home. She wanted to die in Alderney. She was in London and staying with me while she was having treatment there. And then they said, well, we can't look after you anymore, Mrs. Flewitt. And she said, well, then send me home and I'll die in Alderney. So I came back to Alderney with her. And, it didn't happen immediately. We had a few weeks. And in that time, I fell in love with Alderney all over again. Had people offering me work because, I was a builder and a decorator and what have you. And I thought, well, there's more happening here for me than there is in London at the moment, because work was a little bit dry in London anyway. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll give it a go for a few months and see what happens. And I'm still here. I'm still here 30, 40 years later. But I don't regret that at all. I mean, I go back to London, but God, blimey, it's hectic there, isn't it? I can't wait to get out, really. I go there and have a few shows, a few lovely meals, see a few sights,
Blow out the cobwebs.
And come back home where it's peaceful and quiet and restful and all your friends are. And, the lovely thing about Alderney is everyone is famous, because, hundreds of people know you and you know hundreds of people. And if anything happens to anyone over here, it sends repercussions through the entire community. That's how close we are. We're like a large family. And that's the lovely thing about Alderney. I think it's just that modular size where everyone is trapped within a geographical location, surrounded by the sea, so necessarily trapped. You've just got to get on with each other. And for the most part, we do. And, you form some really close alliances and friendships. And that's the lovely thing about Alderney, is you've got so many friends. You've never not got someone that you're overjoyed to bump into on the street. With the sort of with the being well known in the community, that is a benefit, but it also comes with a kind of a responsibility, doesn't it?
Yeah. And
it comes with a reputation. You don't want to live in a small community with a reputation for not caring for that community. So you don't want to be a litter lout. You don't want to put up an eyesore in the green belt or anything like that, do you? So with that, becomes a kind of a self-policing community. People police themselves. They also police other people, saying, don't put that there, or don't do that, this, that and the other. Instead of going to a court or going to the constable or whatever, you just say, can you move your car out of the way, or do this for me, or do that for me, because you know who that person is. Yeah, but there's very little crime here, isn't there?
Yeah.
And I think that's because of this instinct in a confined group, a sort of unstated knowledge that crime doesn't pay. It's a very difficult community to get away with any crime. You can't.
Where do you run?
Where are you going to fence this gear? I would think there's almost zero crime here. Maybe a couple of scraps in the pub when people get a bit drunk, but really, there's hardly anything, is there? You read the journal and look at the court pages, and what is it?
Can't bury all bent.
What really keeps me here is the fact that all my family are here, obviously, and my wife, and she's not going anywhere. We've got a beautiful house, we've got a beautiful life, and we have the best friends that I could possibly imagine. I can't count the friends I've got over here. I've got so many, and it keeps me rooted here. Definitely, I wouldn't want to leave because I'd miss all of them so much, and I couldn't be bothered now at my age to make a whole new tranche of friendships that would never match the ones I've got here anyway. So really, everything that I need, everything I want, is here. And I think even if I won the pools, millions of pounds, I wouldn't move to some exotic, warm location and buy a villa because my friends wouldn't be there, and they wouldn't want to, So I think if I won £1 million, I'd probably live the same life I'm living now, because I'd probably just give it all to my kids, because I don't need it. I don't particularly want it. I don't want a lavish lifestyle. I mean, look at the way people live over here. I mean, the standard of living here is pretty high, I think. I mean, everyone's got really lovely houses. They've got, the freedom and the safety of living in a community that cares about them. It's there's a lot to be said. You can't put a monetary value on that. It's lifestyle, isn't it? The standard of living, literally, of living, nothing to do with your wage, nothing to do with how much money you've got in the bank. It's all about the life that you're living, and the standard of living here on that scale is through the roof. Change is good, and Alderney has always been open to change. We don't respond badly to change. People have come along from the UK and I don't understand why. They fall in love with the place and then immediately want to change it. And you think, well, why did you come here? If you like the place the way it is, why do you want to change it so drastically? Because it's not right. Things don't move quickly enough here. Well, they do for the rest of us. If things move too quickly, you can end up with something broken and not able to fix it. Then you lose what's valuable, exactly. So we have our precious green belt, and you can't just build a house anywhere you want to, and you can't build any house that you want to. There are certain design features and elements which have to work with the character of the island, and that's fair enough. You are referring to my pantomimic endeavours.
Yes.
Yeah, I've done 12 of those now, and they're hugely popular, and people are still congratulating me. Last night someone congratulated me on the last panto and said how much they enjoyed it. I'm never cruel, and I would never malign anybody. I might have a dig, but it's a friendly, humorous dig, and people appreciate it. I don't think anyone has ever really gotten upset about a joke I've made about them in a panto. In fact, people get upset when I don't make jokes about them. I don't know if you remember Colin Murphy. Well, he was the local sort of celebrity, wasn't he? Bit of a buffoon, and he knew it. And every year in the panto, I would put a Murphy joke, and it always went down a storm, and everyone loved it because they all loved Colin, and Colin was always in the audience, used to love it. And then one year I forgot to put a Murphy joke in, and he was in a high dudgeon over that. It was the Murphy joke. I didn't get a mention this year. When he died, bless him, that year I put a Murphy joke in the brochure, in the programme. And his girlfriend came up to me afterwards because she'd read the programme. She was almost in tears because I'd done that in honour of him, because he was such a standard joke in every panto, not just the panto, because I used to do all the Alderney Week sketches. Well, I still do, and he was always mentioned in a sketch as well. So he was one of the more popular targets. But it's so easy because he took it so well.
Yeah. Yes, he loved it.
Yeah. Whereas over here, people tend to know all of their neighbours because they bump into them every day, going into the shop, They don't just bump into them in their own little road. They bump into them walking the dog on the beach, or in the supermarket, or wherever, in the pub, in the restaurants, shops. So it's yes, it's the neighbourliness. That's the factor here, I think. The neighbourliness of the island. Everybody is your neighbour. They needn't be next door, but there is a neighbourliness about everybody here. We live in the same neighbourhood called Alderney, So yes, there's that factor. So you can't be alienated, really, even if you wanted to be. If you wanted a little bit of privacy, and you probably had more people know stuff about you than you particularly want. It's constant, and I just wave at cars willy-nilly now,
Yeah, so
even if I don't know who's driving it, because I just think if that person knows me and they wave at me and I don't wave back, their feelings are going to be hurt, or they're thinking I'm snubbing them.
Take it personally.
So every time a car drives past, I just do that. Automatic. You should patent that. It'd be a good little invention.
But yeah,
A little flag that comes up every time a car comes up from the
Actually, that
other
would be fantastic.
Yeah. But
I find them waving at hire cars as well, and people wave back.
Yeah,
Never
everything.
met them
I wave
before.
at everything.
Yeah.
The ambulance, the school bus, everything. Fire engines.
Love it.
Always wave at fire engines. And interesting things, everyone here is interesting in their own little way, aren't
Yeah.
they? You can stop any person in the street and chat to them.
Everybody has a
Look
story.
at this, Set any local yokel down, and you'll get a story out of them or two.
Yeah.
But for everybody, it's different, because everybody's an individual. So to pin it down to one particular thing, it would probably not be possible. It just makes you happy, and this is the place that makes these people happy. I don't feel, and if they want to stay, that's fine, isn't it? And then they become Alderney people, Alderneyans, Wrightunians.